Okay, so get this. We're diving deep into this story today.
Mm.
And it's about family dynamics and chores and like a revenge plot that's basically Shakespearean. It's wild. I promise you'll be hooked. Just imagine this family with 7 kids.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So already sounds pretty chaotic, right?
Yeah.
Well, it gets even better because 6 of these siblings, they've like turned avoiding chores into a competitive sport.
Mm-hmm.
And poor Teddy, the oldest, she's left doing literally all the housework.
Oh, man, the classic sibling struggle. It's like a rite of passage, isn't it? That whole
Hmm?
push and pull,
Yeah.
wanting things to be fair, but also wanting to get away with as much as you can. I think this story really shows how power dynamics can play out in families, especially when you add in birth order.
Right, because she's the oldest. There's all this pressure on her to be responsible and set a good example for the others.
Yeah.
But she has all the responsibility, but like 0 authority.
Yep.
And that's just asking for trouble. And the story shows this so clearly. You see her trying everything to get her siblings to help out. Like asking nicely guilt trips, everything you can think of. She even tries going to their mom for help, which, let me tell you, backfires completely.
It's like a comedy of errors watching all her attempts fail. And, studies have actually shown that the oldest sibling often ends up in this mini parent role. And it makes sense that it leads to feeling overburdened and underappreciated. I think the story does a really good job at showing that frustration, but in a way that's relatable and actually pretty funny.
Oh yeah, for sure. The way her siblings just ignore her when she asks for help. I could practically picture them all glued to their phones, pretending that overflowing laundry basket doesn't exist. It's
Yeah.
totally a scene that probably plays out in tons of homes.
Yeah, and the mom's reaction, or should I say lack of reaction, it adds a whole other layer of humor to it. It's like she's totally oblivious to this chore war happening all around her, which, says something about how disconnected parents and kids can be sometimes.
Totally. It's like she's living in some parallel universe where chores magically do themselves. But here's where things get interesting. Teddy reaches her breaking point and decides it's time for payback. She comes up with this crazy elaborate scheme, and she calls it the ultimate payback plan. Even the name is kind of dramatic, don't you think?
Oh, yeah, the name is perfect. Like, it sets the stage for something big, something
Yeah.
way beyond your typical sibling argument. Like, she's
Right.
declaring war, but in this hilariously passive-aggressive way.
Exactly. And trust me, she's not messing around. She starts by going after her siblings' biggest weakness.
Yeah.
Their precious school uniforms. Picture this. She soaks every single one. The crisp white shirts, the perfectly ironed pants, all just swimming in a giant bucket of water.
That's brilliant. It's not just inconvenient and embarrassing, but it also plays on that classic fear all kids have of showing up to school looking anything less than perfect. It's like this non-confrontational power move, a way of disrupting their carefully crafted image.
Right. But she doesn't stop there. Teddy then makes this special breakfast with a secret ingredient that's guaranteed to cause, let's just say, some digestive distress. Think along the lines of a certain over-the-counter remedy that's meant to move things along a little too quickly, if you know what I mean.
Oh, boy. Now, this is where things get a little ethically ambiguous. I mean, Teddy's creativity is impressive,
Yeah.
but using a laxative as a weapon is definitely crossing a line. It makes you think about how far is too far when it comes to getting revenge on your siblings.
And that's what makes the whole story so interesting. It's hilarious, but it also makes you think about revenge and what people will do just to get a little peace and quiet. Honestly, part of me kind of admires her audacity.
Oh, yeah, for sure. The story wouldn't be nearly as entertaining if Teddy had just given them another lecture or tried to get her parents involved again. It's that she's willing to push the boundaries. Think outside the box. That's
Yeah.
what makes the plan so memorable.
So picture this. The siblings, totally clueless about what they just ate, are happily munching away on this special breakfast. And we all know what's coming next, right?
Oh, yeah. It's like watching one of those slow-motion train wrecks. You know it's coming, but you just can't look away. And this is where the story turns into classic sibling comedy. It takes something super ordinary like going to the bathroom and turns it into pure chaos.
Oh, totally. One by one, the siblings start feeling the effects of Teddy's little concoction. It's
Yeah.
like this chain reaction, each one racing to the bathroom, trying to beat the clock. And get this, there's only one toilet.
Oh, no, I can just imagine 6 kids all panicking, fighting over one bathroom. It's priceless. It's like those urgent, embarrassing moments we've all had. But it also shows how, even in the middle of all this chaos, siblings are still competing with each other.
Their survival instincts kick in. But instead of fighting off a wild animal, they're battling it out for bathroom supremacy. You can practically hear the frantic knocking and the pleas for whoever's inside to hurry up. And the sounds come from inside that bathroom. Well, let's just say we can use our imaginations.
Yeah, I think we can all fill in the blanks there. The story does a great job of using those vivid sensory details, though. You can almost smell the aftermath of Teddy's special breakfast. It's those little details that make it so relatable and hilarious.
It's like you're right there in the middle of this chaotic family moment.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Teddy's plan actually works. After that day, her siblings miraculously become chore-doing machines. It's like she flipped a switch in their brains.
It really shows how effective her, shall we say, unconventional approach was. She disrupted their routine, challenged their comfort zone, and ultimately got them to change their behavior.
It's almost like they had to hit rock bottom before they realized how good they had it when Teddy was doing everything for them. But this story isn't just about a funny revenge plot, is it? It makes you think about the deeper psychology behind how siblings interact.
Exactly. It raises all these questions about fairness and power dynamics and the different ways people learn and adapt. It's clear Teddy's siblings didn't respond to normal ways of communicating. They needed a more, well, let's just say visceral experience to get the point across.
It's like they needed to feel the consequences of their actions, literally and figuratively, before they were willing to change. And it makes you wonder, are there times when those unconventional methods are actually more effective in the long run?
That's a fascinating question, and I don't think there's an easy answer. It all depends on the situation, the people involved, and a bunch of other factors. But Teddy's story definitely suggests that sometimes shaking things up and pushing people out of their comfort zones can have surprisingly positive results.
So even though we might not totally agree with how she did it, there's no denying she had a brilliant strategy. It's like she knew exactly how to motivate her siblings, even if it meant resorting to some questionable tactics.
It all comes back to understanding the psychology of the people around you, whether it's your siblings, coworkers, or even your friends. Being able to anticipate their reactions and tailor your approach accordingly can be so valuable.
It's like a secret weapon for your relationships. And while we might not all be as strategic as Teddy, I think her story gives us a lot to think about. But before we wrap things up, I want to go back to that bathroom scene for a second, because let's be honest, it's the best part of the whole story.
Oh, for sure. It's a perfect example of how to write comedy. It captures those moments of pure chaos that we can all relate to.
Yeah.
And the fact that it all comes from something as universal as sibling rivalry makes it even funnier.
Because who hasn't been there with their siblings, where something small turns into a full-blown war? It's like a rite of passage, a shared experience that bonds us together through laughter and, well, maybe a little bit of trauma.
And it's those shared experiences that make stories like this so powerful. They remind us that we're not alone in our struggles and triumphs and those moments of complete absurdity. They connect us on a human level, even if it's through something as ridiculous as a fight over a toilet.
Yeah. It's like a reminder that even when things are crazy, there's always room for humor. And sometimes those absurd moments are the ones we end up cherishing the most. But I think it's time to zoom out a little bit. What are the bigger takeaways from this story? What can we learn from Teddy's experience?
It's not just about chores and revenge, right? It's about navigating family relationships and finding creative solutions to problems and maybe even learning a thing or two about psychology along the way.
It's like a crash course in sibling warfare, but with some humor and introspection thrown in.
Yeah.
So as we start wrapping up this deep dive, I'm curious, how would you have handled Teddy's situation?
Would you have gone to such extremes? Or would you have tried to find a more peaceful solution?
It's something to think about, isn't it? And maybe this story will make you appreciate the people in your life who do the chores a little bit more.
Because, let's be real, no one wants to be on the receiving end of a special breakfast. But on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive. What are your final thoughts on this crazy journey through sibling dynamics, creative problem solving, and the ethics of revenge? It's been a fascinating look at how complicated family life can be. And while we might not agree with everything Teddy did, there's no denying her approach was effective.
She definitely got what she wanted, even if it was in a pretty unconventional way. And maybe that's the biggest lesson here. Sometimes thinking outside the box, even if it means pushing the boundaries a little, can lead to surprising good results.
Absolutely. And it's a good reminder that even in tough situations, there's always a place for humor. Because let's face it, life's too short to take everything seriously, especially when it comes to those wacky, wonderful, and sometimes totally infuriating relationships we have with our siblings.
So as we close out this deep dive, we want to leave you with this thought. Embrace the chaos, appreciate the humor, and maybe learn a thing or two from Teddy's unusual problem-solving skills. It's like we just binged a whole season of some crazy family drama, all in one story. But you know what really sticks with me? It's not just the funny parts. It's how this story kind of makes those crazy family moments we've all had seem normal.
Yeah, I totally agree. We always see these perfect families in movies and TV shows. But in real life, every family has its own weird stuff and power struggles and just moments where it's totally nuts. And the story reminds us it's okay to laugh about that stuff, you know? Find the humor in the chaos.
Right. We've all had those moments where you look back and just have to laugh at how ridiculous things got, especially with siblings. Things can go from totally fine to a complete disaster so fast.
Oh, yeah, for sure. This story shows that perfectly. How something as simple as chores can turn into a full-blown,
A digestive crisis.
exactly. But it also shows how strong family bonds can be.
Because even after all that drama, even after the special breakfast and the bathroom situation, they're still a family. They still have to figure out how to live with each other.
And that's maybe the most important thing we can take away from this. We can learn from Teddy's creative problem-solving skills, but we also have to remember that communication and empathy and being willing to work together are super important for any relationship to be healthy.
Because you don't want every family dinner to feel like a ticking time bomb, right?
Definitely not. A little bit of give and take and understanding can go a long way. Who knows, maybe this story will inspire some families to have those open conversations about chores and stuff before anyone has to resort to drastic measures.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we're left with a lot to think about. What did this story show you about families, about creative problem solving, and even about your own life?
And how can you use those insights in your own life? Maybe it's time to rethink how chores are divided up in your house. Or maybe it's just a reminder to be thankful for the people who do the chores without complaining.
Because, let's be real, everyone deserves a break from chores every now and then, and maybe, just maybe, we can figure out a way to do that without any special breakfasts involved. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep those family dynamics in check.